Hey guys, what's up? So today we're going to be looking at the RG353VS and the RG353M. So it's a bit difficult to compare these two actually because they come at slightly different price points. If you're looking for something cheaper, definitely the RG353VS is a really good option. I think it's possibly the best option around under $100. Whereas if you are looking for something which is a bit more expensive, a bit more premium, compact, the RG353M, while it is of course a little bit more expensive than all of the other offerings, around $150, I think it's still a good option because it's really unique in its class. It's metal, but you are going to compare it to things like the Retro Pocket 3, maybe the Retro Pocket 3 Plus, and it's not as good value, I'd say, in terms of those other consoles. So out of this head-to-head though, I think personally the TLDR for me, I would buy the RG353VS because it's got a lot of the features that this other one has. So if you want a cheaper option, the VS, the more expensive option, premium option would be the RG353M. Let's just quickly go over some of the things which the 353M does have in terms of advantages over the other console here I have. So it's definitely got better ergonomics than the VS, RG353VS, because it's in that horizontal form factor, and I think they've used a slightly different membrane on here as well, because on the D-pad and the buttons, because they do feel softer, but definitely just the horizontal form factor, it leads to less like cramping, because you can reach all of the buttons up here and the sticks reasonably easier. But on this one, when you're holding the console, it's a bit more cramped, I'd say, because you're bunching your fingers up behind the console itself, and that is one of the factors, I'd say, which makes this one a little bit better. You also get these stereo speakers. So when Anbernic first released this console, they made a big deal about these speakers being vastly improved over the other options that they have released before, whereas the RG353VS only has a mono speaker, which is nicely placed, but these bottom firing stereo speakers are definitely better. And also the 353M has a slightly larger battery than the RG353V or the VS, because you can see there it has a 3,500 milliamp battery, whereas this one only has a 3,200 milliamp battery. That will translate to around, I don't know, half an hour, 1 hour more battery life over the on the M over the VS. As you can see as well, it's slightly smaller. It's physically smaller, not by much though, because you can see like this is just sticking out here, and then the actual form factor itself is, it's slightly, I'd say it's slightly smaller, but not, it's just been moved around a little bit, so it's not that much smaller in terms of carrying in your pocket. But this actually it feels slightly more pocketable because it's thinner, so I'd say that's another win for the M. And of course it's metal, right? So this metal casing feels really nice in the hand. It may get cold if you're living in a colder country or something like that, so maybe that's something you don't like. But the metal casing definitely does add that real premium feeling over any other console that you use. It's really solid. It doesn't feel cheap at all. It feels really expensive actually. So I really do like that. Something that we've seen over time though is that you get some powder coming off, or some residue coming off the edges of the plastic areas of the D-pad and buttons. So it's not necessarily too good on that front. You might get some, you'll see some white marks here and there, and I really don't like that. Whereas on the VS, the RG353VS I've played, I've not seen any of that, any white marks or issues in my D-pad or dirt building up. So that might be a small issue on the reason why it's the metal casing. So that would be the main pros and against the VS and for the metal one. It does have, my particular RG353M has a slightly better screen than my RG353VS, and I'm not sure why that is. I mean, it's the same screen in terms of the specs, but I've noticed that the one on my RG353M is slightly, the colors are slightly better, but I think you can fix these with some filters and some tinkering on RetroArch, so it's not too much of a problem. And in terms of things that we have that are the same, obviously we have the same, very similar performance, very similar custom firmware options like Unofficial OS, Gelos, ArcOS. You're not going to have any problems with finding open source firmwares for any of these two devices. And of course, you've got the same connectivity as well. So you've got HDMI, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth on both consoles. You've got really no problems in terms of functionality differences. So let's talk a bit more about the RG353VS or the RG353V variant. So of course the big advantage that this plastic one has is it's way cheaper than the premium one. So if you have smaller hands or you really like the vertical form factor, I think this one is definitely for you, because as good as the M is, I don't think it's worth the cost. I think it costs too much. And if you can get the same experience, same performance, same connectivity, I would go for the RG353V or the RG353VS if you can live without the Android option as well. It is, of course, lighter, so it's slightly bigger in a different way, so it's slightly thicker and maybe like a bit more wider, but I don't think that makes a massive difference in terms of fitting into your pocket. It's just that because it's made of plastic, it's way it's about 25% lighter than this guy, and that can make it a little bit more portable. And also I prefer the layout of the buttons on this. So obviously it's vertical, so the buttons are going to be different anyway, but I really like that they've put the function button in the menu button in a different place here, and I really don't like the placement of that button up there. I think it's a bit silly to put it there, especially when you're going to be using it for maybe your RetroArch hotkeys or your menu hotkeys, save states, forwarding, rewinding, etc. So I don't like the placement of this, but there's not that much space to put it anywhere else, to be honest. So I think that was probably the best that they could do, but I do like the button placement on the RG353VS. So as I said, the performance is the same between the RG353V and the RG353M. Also, if you can do without the Android, like if you don't need this to be a touchscreen, and you're okay with the Linux operating system, so it's a bit easier to use on Linux in my opinion, then you could even save a few more bucks by getting the VS option of this console. So this comes in two variants. It comes in the Android version, and it also comes in the Linux only version, which has slightly less memory, but it doesn't matter too much. So you can save a lot of money by getting the plastic variant of the plastic and the Linux only variant of this console. So if you had, just to summarize again then, if you had around $100, $100 US, and you're looking for something a bit better than the, like the Miu Mini Plus or the RG35XX, I would definitely get this RG353VS or consider the RG353V, because this is really good value. And if you've got a bit more money to spend, I would actually consider the Retroid Pocket 3 instead of this, because I think that this is a bit too expensive for what it is. However, if you really like this horizontal form factor, the size, the metal, really premium option, like you don't care so much about how much it's going to cost, I think that this is really probably the best option in terms of 3.5-inch display consoles, because it's really nice. And you've got a lot of the even though the performance is pretty similar to a cheaper console, I think this guy is just, when I first got it, it's like, wow, this is amazing, because every the build quality is second to none. Everything works as it should. The D-pad and the controls feel really good. They do feel slightly noticeably better than this one, because this is obviously a cheaper one. But I really enjoyed my time with the RG353M. It's just that it's a shame that it costs so much. But I guess if you're going to be paying for the premium option, you do expect it to be, amazing. Something I didn't mention as well, just come to mind, is that these are Hall sensor sticks, and these actually do feel better than the ones on here. So if you are playing a lot of dual analog games, which maybe you're not in this level, so Dreamcast and PS1, Ape Escape, these type of games, you're probably not going to be using these that much, but yeah, on this they do feel a little bit more accurate and a lot more nicer to use, especially when you're using both at the same time. So yeah, I think that's my summary for which one you should get out of these two. So it's a bit situational, I'd say. Just to summarize what I just said, yeah, they're both great consoles, but for me, out of the two, I would get this one. So thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.